Good evening, dear friends. So today we have finally reached the gluteus medius. Last time we have analyzed what will happen, how the body position will change at the difference of the quadriceps muscles, how it impacts the vertebrae's position. There are also such cases, which are very frequent, when the position of the pelvis changes, when there is a tilt of the pelvis, when the pelvis is asymmetrical, and this greatly affects movement, affects the position of the entire spine. And very often it just so happens that one wing of the pelvis is lower and the other wing is higher. This happens when there is a difference in the quadriceps muscles of the buttocks. But very often this occurs because there is a difference between the middle gluteal muscles. It is located here on the side. Here it is located. This is all the place it covers. The main movement that it makes, if we isolate and immobilize the rest of the body and only use this muscle, it rises the leg like this. Thanks to this muscle, we can raise our leg like this, when dancing, for example. But usually we don't really use it. That is, this movement doesn't often come up for us to do. The muscle also participates in stabilizing the pelvis at the moment of movement. If my leg, so to speak, is the only thing moving, the rest of the body doesn't move. It makes this movement. But if it starts moving on the supporting leg, it doesn't let the pelvis go here. See? It does this, keeping the pelvis in place. That's another one of its functions, moving the leg to the side and stabilizing the pelvis. And let's imagine that we have a difference between the right and left side. How does this affect the position of the pelvis? When this muscle is strained, the leg, when the pelvis is immobile, has risen to the side. See? The axis of the pelvis. You see, it passes through the middle, and here is the distance between the pelvis and each thigh, each leg, between this axis. It is the same. But if this leg goes here, then it becomes more from this side. So imagine that this muscle is shortened here, it has become short here, and it has moved the leg to its side. Here, it does not let it return back. And in this position, a person stands. He ended up in this position. He stood up like this, his muscles strained, and he found himself in this position. He ended up on this side. As this muscle is short and does not let him pull the leg back here, the opposite side begins to strain, where the muscles are longer. Such a position arises. On the side of the shortened muscle, this shoulder, it will be lower. And this leg from the side of the shortened muscle, it will be closer to the shoulder, practically under the shoulder. And from the side of the long muscle, it appears to be in line with my nose. That is, I become such a hunchback when there is a difference between these muscles. So, we got such a position, right? Here it turned out that the distance between the axis of the pelvis and the thigh is less. Here it is more. But I have to stand somehow. I can't just stand on one leg forever. And therefore, when both feet touch the floor, the pelvis adjusts under it. This half of the pelvis, where the muscle is shortened, will be lower, and the half of the pelvis, where the muscle is longer, will be higher. This affects the feet. Here, on the side of the longer muscle, the weight shifts to the outer part of the foot, and here to the inner part of the foot. It affects the movement of the knees. Here's the knee. It will be more comfortable for it to move like this, inward, here. From this side, where the muscles are longer, it will be easier for it to move outward. And this is very noticeable at the moment when a person climbs the stairs from the side of the short muscle. This is how he will step forward. From the side of the long one, this is how he will step. Knee inward, knee outward. Weight on the outer part of the foot, weight on the inner part of the foot. The bone on the foot here is larger. And here it's either smaller or non-existent. And so we got such a body position. Here, from this side, the knee will be injured, the inner part will hurt constantly. Here it will hurt and will be overloaded, and the joint will be injured more here from this side. The very knee joint here will also be injured. It will be impossible to stand steadily on the left foot. The balance will be poorly maintained. The spine makes a bend. Whether it's like this or like that depends on the muscles above and how they will work. This is the pelvis's position. And the most interesting thing is that with such a position of the pelvis, the spine can bend like this and like that. That is, other muscles already change its position. So, how does it affect the movement and the steps? Let's say from the right side, here I have a short muscle, okay? And now, look, when I'm going to step, here is my central line. And when I'm going to step from the side of this short muscle, I can't fully put my foot forward here. It always slightly deviates to the side for me. There will be such a tilt. And from the side of this long muscle, I can't step well. Because here, this muscle is short. And the opposite leg will be too close to the center all the time, because the hip from this side also starts to tilt here. And it turns out that my middle gluteal muscle, it works like this on its step when it is set. And the middle gluteal muscle, because the leg has already stood to the side, closer to the shoulder, it will still work on the opposite step here. That is, because of the short muscle, the leg has already incorrectly stood. It stood relative to the center. It stood here, closer to the shoulder. The next step will not be normal. That is, with each step, it turns out that my right leg will practically be moving under my shoulder all the time. And the left one will be moving under my nose like this. And the pelvis will be twisting because of this here. From the short muscle side, it will be bending backward. And from the long muscle side, it's going to be pointing forward. This is due to the difference in the gluteal muscles. That is, this rotation of the pelvis is the difference in the gluteal muscles. We will talk about them later, not today, next time. Next time, we will delve into it. So, what to do in the end? A question arises. We got it all, so what should we do now? We already know the problem. We need to start with making this short, tense muscle longer and more relaxed. Because if we start training this part now, we had this position, right? This was the position. This leg here, this one here. If we start training this now, we will get this. This is how it will turn out. Not too good, right? I think so. That is, if we now make the left middle gluteal muscle shorter as well, then instead of this, we will get this. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be much better, maybe even worse. Of course, the movement will also be symmetrical. That's true, but it won't be a good one. So we need to get this leg back closer to the center. We need to start with the fact that we will remove this shortening. You need to take a ball first. Look at this area. Your task from the side of the tense short muscle to work it out. Massage it right here. So that not a single sore spot remains. How to determine from which side to do this? By movement, it's clear what's happening. One of the ways to determine it is to measure this distance here, between the thigh bone and between the subcutaneous bone. On the side, where it will be shorter, the muscle is shortened. But there are also other signs. For example, a tilt to this side, the shoulder will be lower on the side of the short muscle. Then another sign is that on the side of the short muscle, the leg will be easier to lift. On the opposite side, it will be harder to lift the leg. On the side of the short muscle, the knee will go here to this side. One more test. When walking, you can find a line on the floor. Close your eyes, take 5 steps, and if you end up, for example, to the right of this line, the right muscle is shortened. If you end up to the left of this line, it means your left muscle is shortened. But if you still have any doubts, you can work on both sides, and neither the right nor the left will be worse. But from the side of the more shortened muscle, there will be a feeling that the muscle is denser, and there will be more sore spots there. That is, the first thing to start with is to relax this whole part, remove the spasms there, and only after that, move on to the exercises. You need to work not on strengthening the opposite middle gluteal muscle for the first time, but on stretching the short one. One of the ways to stretch this muscle is to take a pillow or a roller of some kind. For example, you've determined that your right muscle is short. You lie on your left side, you put this pillow under your buttock, specifically under pelvis, from the opposite side. You put your lower leg forward. The side on which you have a shortened muscle goes to the back. You put it so that the buttock is approximately in line with the spine. And you put your knee right here, right on the floor. Try to reach the floor with your knee. And in this position, you just lie down. It will stretch right here. If you don't feel the stretch, increase the height. If you feel the stretch here and not here, then the pillow is moved down. If the pain is too strong, then do this without a pillow at all. That is, you try to put your knee down. If it doesn't go down at all, then you do it without a pillow first. Then you can increase the pillow's height. At the same time, you start to train the opposite muscle. You need to start with simpler exercises. Here you lie on your side, bend your lower leg. Place your upper leg so that it is in line with your spine and start to lift it. So you've lifted it, lowered it. Lifted it again. You can hold it up a bit here. Hold it so it gets used to this unusual position for it, because it usually ends up here during a step. That is, this position is unusual. It rarely makes this movement relative to the pelvis. So you lift it and just hold it a bit without moving. Hold it for about 10 to 20 seconds. Do this in a position where your leg is in line with your spine. Hold it and lower it. Then you put your leg forward, approximately like how it is when you're walking, so that it's relatively forward, like this. Lift it, hold it, then your muscles get tired. You can do a few sets. And now, the most difficult part, putting the leg back. Hold it and then lower it. If the muscles get tired here, then everything is done correctly. If it gets tired here, and here it does not get tired, then you're helping yourself with your pelvis too much. These are the first exercises you need to start with. For those who have subscribed to the channel with exercises, you should also start with this exercise. You start by working out the muscle in more detail. I showed where and how. And after you have already slightly stretched this muscle, You move on to exercises for stabilizing the pelvis. For this muscle to be working in motion and to avoid bending when walking. So that's how the gluteus medius affects the position of the pelvis and the movement. And even more influence together with it is exerted by the gluteus maximus, about which we will learn in the near future. See you soon.